hands-on approach with the tools, successes, and issues with its use in the legal field. So with that, we've started this first step here, which is to engage with AI and legal experts. We started identifying some of these experts, and we'll be vetting and eventually connecting with them to determine their willingness and interest to engage with COAF. I'm also happy to take any suggestions for potential experts from anyone here, so that we can kind of start compiling that list of potential experts for this particular project. We'll also start a review and assessment of the specific AI tools that are being used in the legal field. So we want to conduct reviews of the AI tools used specifically in employment screening. So we can sort of identify best practices and potential biases in their application and how they're used in the legal field. And then eventually we want to be able to provide resources, which is to develop and distribute these resources such as checklists and guidelines that participants or users can use to assess and monitor the AI tools that employers of attorneys use in their evaluation of candidates. And then the third kind of main topic that came from that meeting was a discussion that covered, it was focused on the persistent kind of unique challenges and needs of underserved rural communities. So this was focused on the idea that these communities might be overlooked when we're identifying innovation, and that innovation can sometimes be tailored for the issues of larger or urban segments of the legal field. So in order to address those issues, we want to engage with employers that serve these communities and kind of review the bar's existing practices to ensure the rural perspective is included. So the key next steps are employer engagement. Again, this is connecting with those organizations that serve primarily rural communities. And we've already sort of started identifying these organizations, and we'll need to start engaging with them to see, get their perspective and start seeing what those specific issues really are. As I mentioned, we also want to ensure there's a rural focus in our existing practices. So we'd want to introduce or highlight those perspectives in existing DEI initiatives, such as diversity summits and the diversity report card. And I believe some of this is already sort of underway. And then lastly, we do want to develop new practices specifically for these underserved communities. So we're conducting more research into innovative and effective strategies specifically designed to address the DEI issues in rural communities and refine those practices for better suit those areas. Happy to take any comments or questions.
Thanks, Abraham. Anybody with questions on this? I can't see any. So I'm gonna, if you have a question, speak up because I can.
Yeah, and I don't see anybody.
Okay, great, good. Okay, thank you. All right. Thanks, Abraham, for this. A lot of really great ideas in there, and you have a brilliant working group with you. So thank you for this. Looking forward to see what comes out of this for sure.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. With Elizabeth's confirmation, I think we are on item 4.10, which is, are there any additional DEI initiatives that folks want to discuss today or bring up? Just as a reminder, I think the work plan, the 2024 work plan was attached to our agenda, but and that'll be something that is taken up at the December meeting, COAF's December meeting. But if you have any other DEI issues that you want to talk about right now, please speak up. And everyone is tired and saying no. All right, not seeing any. Oh, I'm seeing Shalak's hand now. Yes.
Just something that it's not necessarily a new one, but something this group has worked on in the past and recent articles around enrollment in law school have gotten me thinking that in the next year or so, perhaps it will be time to revisit some of the materials around from the state bar on encouragement to apply to law school, engaging in sort of law school recruitment efforts. Especially, you know, earlier today when we were talking about first gen, maybe that can be a different type of focus if we're updating or doing any new materials. It can be attorneys who are, or judges, et cetera, who are first generation to the point, like high school, college, maybe they went to community college and then to 4-year and then to law school, that can speak to that. I don't remember that being a particular focus of the prior outreach pamphlets and videos that were done. Elizabeth, please correct me if I'm wrong. I may have a sketchy memory. But I just think it might be worth, maybe not immediately, but just having on our radar, even as we're working on the work plan for next year or the year after, to put that sort of on our radar, updating those to think about those other demographics that maybe weren't hit as much, so that we're just continuing to build a repository that goes across demographics. To Tristan's point earlier, I don't know the extent to which we had anything specifically to sexual orientation or trans identity, et cetera. I mean, I think we had people participate who were in all of those groups. I don't know that we ever said specifically, I was first gen and did it, so you can do it too, right? Or like, I'm trans, you can be trans. I don't know. Now this is sounding like a Disney after school special, but this is why I'm not in the entertainment field. Hopefully you all get kind of what I mean and where I'm
Yes.
thinking about
Yes.
dating.
So I think some of the materials that have been, the outreach materials that have been published in the past have included representatives or, you know, from various demographic categories, for lack of a less concise way to put that. I don't think we've been like explicit as you're, I think, suggesting. But that is, I think, something that you know, we can look at when we look at developing future materials. I do want to just remind the council that the current priority for the state bar and for COAF is to focus on pipeline from law school moving forward. So we wouldn't necessarily be creating materials that go that would come before that.
So perhaps not come before that, but in representing, maybe it was Yemi or Novella's point earlier about like, okay, great, it's just one entry point is passing the bar exam, but seeing and experiencing belonging from people who went into different practice areas and represented all these identity groups. I guess what I'm saying is maybe in the next year or so on the work plan, maybe we can reprise that working group to revisit whether or not any of those things can or should be updated.
Sure, and then actually now that I'm thinking about the brochure in particular, I feel like that cohort of attorneys like providing kind of their testimonials in that are do touch upon kind of the areas that we've talked about.
Okay.
But of course, you know, the working group is welcome to make edits.
Yeah. I think that some of the people in the brochure do touch on that, but I like where Shalak is going with that. Okay, any other ideas from folks? Yes, Tristan.
Just because we're in the idea session, I want to add that I'm part of another organization that is constantly doing outreach, and there's a brochure for that for every targeted demographic, right? So it's not, here's the people, quote unquote, which means white, right? And then here's everyone else, whether you're disabled, whether you're LGBTQ, whether you're Muslim, you know, you're in this pamphlet. And so I think that, I know it's a lot of work, but it would really make sense to have brochures that are targeted to different communities, given that brochures nowadays are electronic and things like that. So that, you know, if I'm a young Black kid, I can see, oh, I can go to college, I can go to law school, sorry, or I can, you know, I know it's still but if we're going to redo that, I think it would be, if I'm first gen, if, you know, they don't all have to be, they're not all going to be based on race, but, you know, if I'm if I'm wearing a hijab, right? Like, I think there should be a different, there's a place for me. If I see a brochure that's targeted just to me, it helps me to see there's a place for me, whether it's in the legal profession or whether it's getting to school. So with that, I'll be quiet.
No, and I can't, you know, I'm rolling off, but I'm on the working group that worked on the brochure. And you know, to the extent that we are making these things now electronic and not actually the old brochures that were in paper that we handed out, you know, I don't see why we couldn't, you know, expand on that.
Yeah, and some of the text could be the same, right? Like, it
Right.
doesn't all have to be new, but some of it should be targeted, not just in the photo of who's on the front.
Right. Yeah, good idea, Tristan, thanks. Any other thoughts from COAF members? All right, seeing none, hearing none. The last item on our agenda, because I do not see a representative from CLA or Cal Law, unless they're in the, Shannon, are there, is either Pam, well, we don't have anybody from CLA, but is Pam, does Pam happen to be in the
No, she's
participant?
not.
Okay, all right. And then the last item on our agenda is review of the 2024 COAF work plan, which, as I said, was attached. And Elizabeth, do we need to do anything
No,
formal on
it
that?
is attached for reference. It's attached to every meeting just to remind COAF of what has been approved by the board for us to work on for the year. But as you mentioned earlier, Kristen, we typically look at this and discuss it in December at our December meeting to get an approved 2025 work plan.
Okay, so take a look at that. And if you have things that you want to add, make sure that you bring them up at the December 2024 meeting, which, if memory serves, will be held in person. Michael and Shalak, yes? Elizabeth, yes?
Yes. Yes, and I would actually encourage you, if you have ideas that aren't currently not in the work plan, that you share them with me and leadership in advance of the December meeting.
Great. Okay, my friends, then seeing nothing else on the agenda, we can go ahead and adjourn our meeting. Again, thank you all, Elizabeth, Shannon, Kim, Dwan, all the other people who are not on here right now. Thank you for the last 5 years. I'm not going anywhere far, but I will miss all of you. I leave you in the very incredibly capable hands of Judge Michael and Dean Shalak, and I look forward to seeing what COAF does next. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Take care.
Bye, everyone.